Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are, of course, at the World Series of Poker. Number of events are going on, and we will be talking with someone else about what their impressions of the World Series are so far to date. But one of the books that was released during this World Series is being talked about because this gentleman collaborated with the two Mizrachi brothers. And you can see it getting started with horse if you're watching here on YouTube with Robert and Michael. Of course, both of them having tremendous success in the world of mixed games, specifically Michael winning the Poker Players Championship 3 times. Robert winning numerous events like Dealer's Choice in 2014, 7-card stud, Omaha High Low. They know these games, and this gentleman does as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris Wallace. Chris, thanks for joining us here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't know if your audience knows this, but I just spent like 10 minutes talking to this really mellow guy, just having a conversation, and then you hit record, and it was like this super high energy. I was shocked. That was your radio personality is super high energy.
That's right. It was the ESPN training, as my producer used to say. It was like
flipping a switch.
Yeah, he used to say commercial voice. And so right. All of a sudden it comes by. It's funny that you say that because I surprise people that I've known for a long time who, we just talk at the table or whatever. And then I interview them and they're like, whoa, what's this? So it definitely is the interview media personality coming out of me. So the secret is out. Sorry to say that. But Chris, talk a little bit about your background. You're originally from Minnesota, now living in Las Vegas, but talk a little bit quickly about your background in poker, and then we'll talk about more about the book.
22 years ago, maybe. I had a friend who was a co-author in the first book and who actually helped me some with the formatting of this book. Adam Stimple was a semi-pro player, and I was getting thrown out of poker or thrown out of casinos for playing blackjack, and had just developed an allergy to exotic hardwoods where I couldn't do my job anymore. I was a guitar builder. And just had no idea what to do with myself. I mean, I drove a cab for 6 months to just like thinking about what am I going to do with my life now that I have no career anymore. And I asked Adam, is it possible to play poker for a living? And he said, for you? Yeah, I'm sure it is. And so he loaned me some books, and 6 months later, I was making too much money playing poker to drive cab anymore. And I just quit. I didn't, it was a job I could easily go back to. I didn't have a huge bankroll, but I didn't have huge expenses, and I could get away with it, without a huge bankroll. But, and so I've been playing poker for a living for 22 years. And, recently I've kind of switched to doing more writing and photography and a bunch of other things, but I'm still making significant chunk of my income at the tables anyway.
Yep.
This is my third book. So I switched to mixed games at some point, and while I still have played quite a bit of No Limit, mixed games are kind of my favorite thing. I love them.
Yeah. Which games specifically are the ones that you really kind of lean toward?
I love split pot games. If it were up to me, poker would just be Super Razdoogie or Super Stud 8 or games like that. I love those games. Those are really fun. I like almost every mixed game except Archie. I think Archie's just a stain on the mixed game world. I hate it so much.
It's one of those where you either have to be part of the club to understand what Archie is. Like I always felt like it's a game that if you just show up at the World Series, it kind of excludes you from that World Series club. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what Archie is? Oh my God, you don't know, et cetera, like that. So, but it's kind of like one of those silly kind of scenarios. But
all year round in the mixed games, anyone over 70 has to have Archie in the game. It's in Vegas, like it's in every game that starts, if the game starts early, I know Archie's going to be in there.
Right. So you like the split pot games. This book obviously is focused on horse, and talk a little bit about how you kind of got involved with both Robert and Michael writing this book.
Last year during the World Series, it was during a horse tournament. I don't remember if it was the 25K or the 10K or the 1500. I don't know, but it was during a horse tournament. I remember specifically telling her, I'm in a horse tournament right now. A woman named Tatiana Fox got in touch with me, and she wanted help publishing a book with the Mizrachi brothers. Her plan was she had done all these interviews with them, and she wanted to turn it into a book, and they wanted to have a book out, and they didn't like the publishing contracts they'd been offered, and they saw that my last book, Short Stack Ninja, had sold pretty well as a self-published book, and they'd seen copies of it, and so they thought to talk to me about it, and so on break, I called her, and she was in Australia. So I was in the back parking lot of the Rio, and she was in Australia, and we were talking about, and basically we just kind of decided to do it right then. I think this happens a lot. People think, I'm going to write a book. I'll help this person write a book. I have like 3 other projects right now that might happen with people who've said, hey, I interviewed this person. I got a bunch of interviews with this celebrity. I'm going to write a book for them. And then they kind of were in over their head. And with Tatiana, she can write, but she's not a serious mixed game player. Right. And when they had me, 10K horse winner, published multiple books, poker coach, all that stuff, I was like the perfect person to do this. So I took the interviews that she had. I talked to Michael and Robert both on the phone to get clarification on a bunch of things and ask them some more questions and some hand history stuff. And then spent 3 months just grinding really hard to try to get it done in time for this year's World Series.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely not the easiest thing. I've published 3 books myself, and like 2 of them self-published, and then 1 through a publisher. It's just a difficult price. People think it's a lot easier than it is. It's not that easy. Just forget the writing part of it. That's obviously, in some respects, that's the easiest part, and that just doesn't happen. It's all the little other things, whether it's the edits or whether it's working with the publisher or all the other stuff. It's obviously gratifying, but it is definitely a difficult process. Talk a little bit about the format of the book. When I was talking with Robert a little bit, it seemed a little bit unique. I thought it might be like Robert wrote one section and you wrote another one, and Michael did, but it seems like you guys all collaborated together.
Yeah, I took all the information they gave me and fit it into the structure that I already had. I had started writing a horse book in, 2009, maybe. And that's where the structure came from. And I thought this would be less work than it was, because I thought, well, I've got this book basically written already. I'll just go in and I'll add in Robert and Michael's thoughts, and I'll tune it up a little bit. And then I went back and read it and realized the game has just changed too much. That's all. I need to rewrite all of this.
Right.
But I kept the structure, which is there are some pieces that talk about overall mixed games, things like introduction to stud games and how they work. But then for each game, there's a strategy section that talks about, this is how the game works. These are the things you need to do. And these covers the very basics of strategy in those games. Then there's a common mistakes section. And I got a lot of this information from Michael and Robert. I wanted to hear what they saw as the common mistakes in their game that they play all the time.
Right.
And then there's hand examples. There's a ton of hand examples in each game. And then there's a hand reading section. And I thought that was really important. In my first book, people said this hand reading section is great, but it's only 3 pages. I wish it was 50. It was a very common thing that people want to learn more about hand reading, and nobody's written much about hand reading in the fixed limit games. So I did an extensive hand reading section with some examples in it, usually in each chapter as well. So each chapter has those 4 pieces, and then it's well over 300 pages. It's 290 in the paperback version, 293. My Kindle version is much longer than that. But so each game has that, and then there's a further study section at the end, and there's a bunch of sections at the beginning. That's why, because this is a pre-press version, so it doesn't even have a table of contents. Yep, it doesn't.
It has all the information. Give the listeners just like kind of a little snippet of some of the games. Let's talk about a game that, a lot of people know Hold'em, right? And again, limit Hold'em is definitely different from no limit Hold'em. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people at least understand the basics of Hold'em. Mm-hmm. One of the games that I think that somebody who's just very new to horse, let's try Omaha 8 or better, because some people understand PLO, right? And that's a pot limit game. It's only high, but 8 or better, just a very, very different game. Talk a little bit about that and what are some of the, quick things. We don't want you to go through the whole section of your book. That's obvious, but like one thing that you can help somebody out you're new to Omaha 8 or better. How do you get through that level if you're playing in a horse game, cash or tournament game?
The first thing that I stress in the strategy section is the 2 cards rule, because people who haven't played any Omaha don't understand how that works. Yeah. That you have to use 2 of the 4 cards in your hand, and that means you have to use 3 only of the board cards. And to think about it in that way, which 3 cards, which 2 cards. Talking about, if you have the ace of diamonds but you don't have another diamond, you can't have a diamond flush, and so you're always thinking, which 2 cards am I going to show the dealer? You're going to flip over all 4, but which 2? And then I go through, I don't know, 8 or 10 at least hand examples where we show in that piece of the strategy section about the 2 card rule. What is your hand here? And then we talk about what your hand is and why. And then and then right after that, what is the nuts here? Because the nuts is important in Omaha, right? You don't have the nuts very often in Hold'em. You either have it or are facing it much more often in Omaha, and especially for the low in Omaha 8. So then there's like 10 more hand examples where we talk about what the nuts is and what you'd like to have in any given situation. Sometimes you'd like to have the top set and the wrap, or the, whatever it is that you'd like to have. So we talk a lot about that, and just knowing, what hands could be out there and how likely they are, I think is a big part of playing Omaha 8.
Yeah, it's definitely, to me, one of the most frustrating games, because it always seems like I have one of the premium pre-flop draws, double suited, ace, king, ace, deuce, double suited, ace 3, ace 4, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And then aces and diamonds I've got, and or a ace or nothing, or a spade or a diamond show. You know what I mean? It's always like
flop is 9-9-6 with 2 clubs.
Right, exactly. I got aces 2, 3. I've never had aces 2, 3 in my entire life. How someone can get that? Really, I've had aces 2, 4. Never had aces 2, 3. But anyway, double suited. Aces, whatever, double suited, and then it comes up 9-9 queen, not even close to my suit, and you're just like, that's great. What I mean? Like,
for Hold'em players, that can be really frustrating, because a big part of Hold'em is pushing those pre-flop equity advantages. Right. You can be a significant favorite in Hold'em. Right. And in Omaha, the hands run so close together that when you get that monster ace, deuce 3, and you're facing some absolute clown who's got 6, 7, 4, 3, and called a 3-bet with it, like, maybe you're a 60-40 favorite over his hand. Like, you're just not a big favorite, right, and it can be very frustrating.
Norman Chad said it on ESPN once. Blah blah blah. They're playing an Omaha hand. They get it all in, and one guy flopped the world, and they show the hands, and he's like, and he's a 60-40 favorite, and he goes, welcome to Omaha, right? And I mean, like,
absolutely,
especially for someone like myself, who really, when he pushes, I've got at least a 70-30 favorite usually, on there. It's like you said, it's very far. I mean, it's a classic. So was playing the horse event here, just went ridiculously card dead after dinner, made it, kept surviving, was like level 13 or whatever it was, and I was down to literally crumbs, and looked down at not the best hand, but when you're that short stack down to like 2 or 3 big blinds, you don't have a choice. I had ace, queen, 7 double suited. And I went hearts and diamonds. I was like, I got the emergency back low.
It's perfectly fine hand if you're short.
Well, especially if you're short, right? I mean, I had no choice in the matter. call someone. I think I had like 2.75 blind, right? So I raised two. He calls not realizing I have nothing left. And I was like, it's going in, don't worry. And so he just throws in a chip. I throw in the rest of it. And he flips over ace of spades, five of spades. I forgot whatever else, right? And it flops 2, 6, 8 of spades. Like, you know how rare it is to be able to be drawing dead after the flop, like legitimately drawing dead.
You could have caught running queens.
I guess
you're live.
I guess you could run. You know, the runner boat draw. You're right. I probably had a 4%, but it was literally like when it happened, it was like even he looked at me and goes, "That's a pretty good flop." I go, "Yeah. Are we running it twice? Like, come on, run it again. Let's see what happens." So crazy that scenario happens. Let's talk a little bit also about stud. Of those stud games, you know, what kind of, you know, advice you can have for people who play stud. Maybe let's talk about Raz, because I mean, Raz is a game that's really kind of like an ancient game in the sense of it's rarely played. 7 stud, I grew up on 7 stud. 8 or better, that's definitely a game that a lot of people like playing. Raz, everyone talks about like, oh, I hate Raz. I actually enjoy Raz, to be brutally honest. But you know, talk a little bit about Raz for people who really, that's kind of why sometimes you may see it out there. They talk about hose events, not horse events, because people hate Raz so much they want to take it out. Yeah. And where it's just it's horse without the R, hose, and they do that. So you know, it's funny. But talk about Raz a little bit.
I like Raz too, but I know a lot of people don't. There's a lot of complaining during the Raz rounds. And I think that is because Raz can go sideways so fast in 4th and 5th streets.
Right.
And, you know, there's no worse thing than to be in a mixed game with a bunch of grumpy old mixed game players when Raz comes up. They will never stop crying about, I mean, I guarantee you that every one of them is going to get all the stud high hands during Raz. They're going to whine about it the whole time. Then they're going to start arguments with each other about who's running worse. And it's pretty miserable.
Right.
But you know, in higher limits, with more serious players, that doesn't happen, and people are playing the game at a higher level, and it's very interesting. I think Raz is fairly unique in that the hand rankings are always linear, in that you don't have draws to worry about, you don't have free rolls to worry about, you don't have all these other things you might be facing. You just either have the best hand or you don't have the best hand, and you're beaten by X percentage, right? And so that means that we just look at the game as how much equity you have right now. It plays really very straight. And you know, I point out a bunch of things in the stud section about how to play stud differently. And I used to play a lot of shorthanded Raz on full tilt at 3 a.m. I'd be sitting at 100, 200 Raz table, just hoping somebody showed up while I played other things. And in Raz, people would show up and then feel like they had to be very aggressive because we're shorthanded. But in stud, there's a lot less money to fight over when you're shorthanded. So the ante structure changes everything. If you're playing 20-40 hold'em and the blinds are 10 and 20, there's $30 in there to start, whether there's 10 players or 3. And if there's only 3, you got to be really aggressive to fight over that money. But if you're playing 20-40 stud, maybe the antes are $3. And with 3 players left, there's only $9 in there. And then somebody puts in the bring in that's probably $5 or something. You know, there's just not nearly as much money to fight over. So you have to be actually quite a bit tighter shorthanded than you would full ring. And that's exactly the opposite of flop games and blinds games. So people who haven't played the stud games before, if they get into a shorthanded situation, just get destroyed.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a lot of, I enjoy it, you know, basically for me, with regards to COVID scenario, we were playing a lot online, and we ended up playing a lot of eight game. And so I had never played horse prior to this year at the World Series. I give, you know, I don't have pretenses that I'm such a great mixed game player. I feel like I'm very proficient. Our home game has been playing it for over 20 years. I know all the rules, etc. But I played 7 stud 1500. I played stud 8 or better. Never played the Raz. I never played the Omaha or Limit. But I played deuce to 7 all the time. But I've always given respect to the players who play horse, etc. But this last couple of years I actually played so much horse, probably more than No Limit. And one of my buddies was asking when I was coming out here, and he said, I'm assuming you're playing the horse. And I just literally didn't even cross my mind. And fortunately, I saw the schedule, and it was going on right as I was here. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I'm very glad that I did, because I really felt comfortable. I really, really felt comfortable. I didn't feel overmatched at all. I think it's definitely going to go on my schedule. I really enjoyed the game, and it's fun, because what I love about it is that once the next game goes, your brain goes, card catalog, okay, pull out the notes for that one, what I mean? And then put that one back. Let's go to stud high, that kind of thing. And your brain,
that is exactly how it feels.
Yeah. And I love it. I really do, because you're No Limit Hold'em. You're just it's just the computer's just always going on at all times. But when you okay, 8th hand, that's over. What are we on? 8 or better. Okay. The strategy change. Now go, and, this is a split game. I'm going to bet differently than, this is a single pot game. I'm going to bet differently, etc. So I don't know if you know this, but I actually interviewed Michael a few years ago for Poker News for my radio show as well. And basically interviewed him about all the 8-game mix. And so basically
cool.
We did all of the games that we're talking about here. And so we put it up on.
I should have gone back to listen to that for the book.
Yeah. And also all of it was on Poker News and all that stuff. And so we basically wrote down, we broke it out a little differently. So we had stud and stud high low in 1. And then we did Raz and triple draw in 2. Then we did limit and Omaha high low in the third one. And then the last one was the big bet games, No Limit Hold'em and PLO. And basically, he just gave advice and initial starting advice on it. And I always go back to those 4 columns whenever I'm just doing it, just kind of get his thoughts about it and go from there. So
I'll have to go back and read those. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah. So
that's
people
good stuff.
Obviously, these guys know what they're talking about. You are the 2014 $10,000 horse champion. People, this is a book that if you are interested in getting into horse and understanding horse, these are 3 players who know these mixed games extremely well. So if you don't mind, pick up the book one more time for the YouTube followers, and I will read it for people who are listening on podcast and the radio show. Mixing It Up, Volume 1, Getting Started with Horse Poker. Obviously, Chris Fox Wallace with the Mizrachi brothers, Michael and Robert. You can get that on Amazon, and you can get the book. We will be giving away a copy here as well, so stay tuned. Go on to Twitter and follow me at Bernard Lee Poker, and also subscribe to my YouTube page, and you will get another kind of raffle ticket for it, and we will be giving the book away. Chris, really appreciate your time. Congratulations on the book. There are a bunch of people buzzing about it, and so I'm sure it'll do extremely well. And again, congratulations, and look forward to seeing you out here in Vegas.
Hey, thanks for having me on. If I'm back at Bally's in time, first round is on me whenever I see you.
Excellent. I love it.
All right.
Chris Wallace here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. When we come back, we are going to be talking with a gentleman who won 2 horse bracelets in 2013. He's going to give us his impressions of how he thinks the World Series has kind of evolved over time, from Binions to Rio to now Paris Bally's. And he also talks about some horse questions that we bring to. It's really a horse event day here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. So when we come back, we'll be talking with Tom Snyder here when we return here as we continue the 15th anniversary celebration of the Bernard Lee Poker Show.